kitchen. So recently Amy from Sweetstamp got in touch with me to ask if I wanted to create a cake which was going to go in a cake decorating magazine to show how to use sweet stamps. Now I said yes, and the cake was to be around the theme of vintage. So I decided to make a cake which had a teacup and saucer on the top and then had sweet little biscuits around the side. The cake is actually out in the July issue of the Cake Decoration and Sugar Craft magazine, but because they didn't feature the whole tutorial and just because there's a lot more I can tell you in a video, I thought I would share with you how I made all the different elements of this cake and put it all together. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so for my cake, I've just got a 6-inch round cake that measures around 4.5 inches in height. And I'm just gonna cover this in some pink icing or fondant. Now, because this is a vintage cake, I wanted the fondant to have a dusky pink color to it. So I've used a Wilton food gel in pink, but to give it a dusky shade, I've added a little bit of blue. Now I will put a link in the description below to a full video which shows how I cover my cakes from start to finish if you want to see that. Okay, so now our cake has been covered. I'm just going to prepare my lettering to go on the front. So for this, I've just got the Sweetsticks sweet stamps there, and this just has really pretty lettering in uppercase and your lowercase. The words that I'm going to put on the front is "It's always tea time," which was spoken by the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. Now for the first word, which is "it's," I do need an apostrophe to go in the top. And looking at my set of Sweetstamp, you get these extra pieces of plastic that have been cut out in the center of letters. Now usually you might throw these away as they're not needed, but if you look at the O, the center of the O has the perfect shape for an apostrophe. Now because we only have one of each letter, I will need to just leave a space where we have the duplicate letters and they can be added in later. So just take my Sweetstamp tacky mat, and when we turn that over we just have our stamp all ready to use. So now this is ready to push against our cake. And just push that tacky pad across from one side to the other, just so we're creating indents, and just peel off the letters that we need as the duplicates and push them into the cake by hand. So now our letters have all been pushed in and we've got this lovely embossed wording. All I'm going to do is just leave my cake to one side for around about an hour, just for that fondant to firm up, just so we can then paint inside our letters with some vintage gold. Okay, so my cake has been sitting for around an hour. So I'm just using some royal gold edible luster dust and just mixing that with some rejuvenating spirit. I'm then going to go in with my brush from the Sweetstamp brush duo. Once your letters have all been painted in, transfer my cake onto a drum board, which I'm going to cover in some icing. Now for this cake, I am going to offset it slightly, so I've got a much larger area at the front than I have at the back, and that's just because I want to place a few elements onto my board. The first thing that I'm going to do is add a bow around the bottom. Now you can make this out of fondant, but I am just going to use a normal satin bow. Okay, so I'm going to start by making some of my biscuits. The first biscuit I'm going to create is a nice biscuit. I'm going to use the Sweetstamp mini message set and also some fondant. Now I've mixed this fondant with 50/50 gum paste, and I've coloured this in an ivory colour with a small hint of brown. So I've got here the N, the I, the C and the E, and just thread these on the blue holder. So I'm going to go ahead and just roll out my fondant to around a thickness of 5mm, cut out a rectangle. I'm then going to go in and just round off the edges, bring my stamp back in and just place that in the center of my biscuit and just push down. Take my modeling tool with the point at the end and just push in that fondant all the way around. Take a small piece of tin foil and just scrunch that up, just so it will give us a little texture. Push this into the biscuit. I'm then going to take some cream edible tin, go in with a fluffy brush and just add some of that tin around the edge. And then just to finish off our biscuit, take a small amount of edible glue just on the end of a paintbrush and just dab small amounts I'm then going to take a small amount of caster sugar and sprinkle some of that sugar on so that it will stick. And then we have our Nice biscuit. So I'm just going to leave this to one side to dry. Okay, so the next biscuit I'm going to make is actually a Bourbon biscuit. So I've just got some fondant and gumpaste, the same as I did with the Nice biscuits. And I've just coloured this one in a chocolate brown. So I'm going to roll this out and cut out 3 rectangles, about 1 inch in width and about 2 inches in length. I'm then going to take 2 of my pieces to start with and just round off those corners slightly. Now with the third one, I'm just going to trim a tiny bit off of the edge. This is going to be the filling, round off those corners. Now exactly the same as I did with our Nice biscuit, place my words over the top of my 2 larger ones and just push in. Take a cocktail stick and just put some holes like a Bourbon biscuit. Take the piece of scrunched up tin foil that I used for the Nice biscuits and just push that into those biscuits slightly to make them look like they've been baked. I'm just going to put some sugar on there. I'm then going to take my center piece and just flip one of my sides of Bourbon biscuit over. I can then stick the middle down. And once that's all been put together, there we have our Bourbon biscuit with our chocolate middle. Okay, so I'm going to create the teacup to go on top. And the first thing that I'm going to do is create the saucer. So I've just got a large ball of gum paste. Roll this out until it's a few millimeters in thickness. I'm just going to use the largest of my round circle cutters. This one measures around 4 inches across and just round off that edge. Use my rolling pin and just evenly roll over the top, turning the disc of gum paste round just to make it slightly larger than our cutter. Take my cookie cutter and sit my disc of gum paste in the middle. Just allow it to droop down slightly so you get a nice dish shape. Leave that on there just until that's dry. Okay, so once your saucer has been left for a few hours, you're left with this nice curved saucer. So the next thing to do is create the teacup that's going to go on top. Now for this, I actually want to make it look like there's tea inside. So I'm going to use some Rice Krispie squares and squish all of these together to create a teacup shape. So I'm just going to go ahead with my hands and first of all just mold them into a cone shape. I'm then going to trim off bottom and just push that around. Now I'm going to bring my saucer back in just to test the size of my teacup. Now I'm going to be covering this with a small amount of buttercream just to make it smooth and a thin layer of fondant. So you need to take into consideration that it will actually get slightly bigger. Now the reason that I'm covering it in buttercream is just to smooth out those sides because the Rice Krispie treats can be slightly bumpy. Once that's completely covered, I pop that in the fridge for about 10 minutes just for that buttercream to firm up. So once the teacup has come out of the fridge, I placed my teacup on top of a glass. Now the reason for this is because I want the fondant to come slightly further than the teacup itself. So I'm just going to roll this out and cover my cake and trim off some of that excess and just trim off around the edge, leaving around 5 millimeters of excess. So in order to create the tea inside my teacup, I've just got some really light brown. Use a circle cutter and we're just going to slot it in the top of our teacup. I'm then going to pop that inside and just push that all the way to the edge. So the first thing that my teacup needs is a handle. So I've just rolled out a long sausage of gum paste. I then want to flatten both ends. The top one is going to turn inwards and the bottom one is going to turn outwards, a bit like a question mark. I'm then going to glue that on the side of my cup and I'm just going to push that into place. Now I just want to add some detail on to my teacup and saucer just to make it look a little bit more vintage. So I've just got some of my gold luster dust here, which I've mixed with my rejuvenating spirit, and I'm just going to work my way first of all around the edge of the saucer and the teacup. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add some little roses onto these. So I've just got 2 shades of pink and a sage green. These are just gel colours that I've just mixed with a small amount of white and also a little bit of alcohol. So take the light pink and I just want to create a curved stroke. So I'm going to do 1 and then some more around the edge. I'm then going to take the darker pink on my brush and just go in between those. And these are just supposed to look like rose petals. Take a small amount of sage green and just create a leaf shape. So we have this nice pretty rose, and I'm going to go ahead and do this on the bottom of the saucer and also on the side of my teacup. Once they've been painted, we have this really pretty cup and saucer. So to make this look a little bit more like tea, I've just got some piping gel and just paint that over the top. And all this is going to do is just make our tea look wet. So now I've got my cup and saucer, I'm going to make a small teaspoon to go on the side. So I've just created a small template which I've drawn out, and I'm going to place this onto some gum paste which I've rolled out to around 1mm in thickness. I'm then going to use a craft knife and just cut out the shape. Bring it in my foam mat and just using my ball tool, just thin out that middle, just to curve that round as a spoon would. And once you're happy with the curve of that, place that onto an actual spoon just for it to dry. Once your spoon has been left to dry, take some of my royal gold luster dust and my rejuvenating spirit, mix those together to create a paint, and then just apply it onto my spoon. I then want to create some sugar cubes to go next to my cup and saucer. So I'm just going to take some white fondant and roll this out so it's about 1 centimetre in height. Now to make these look a little bit more like sugar cubes, all I'm going to do is just take my edible glue and completely cover my sugar cubes. I'm just going to dip it in this dish where I've got some granulated sugar so that all of that sugar sticks to the sides, and when you take it out, there you have a fondant sugar cube. Okay, so lastly, I'm just going to create some rolled up roses just to go on the edge of our teacup. So I've just got some dark dusky pink here and some sage green. Now I'm going to roll my pink out into a long strip, cut off 2 strips, and each one is going to be around 1 centimetre in thickness. Go down one side of them and just make sure that it's all smoothed off. So I'm just going to pick up my strip and I just want to start to ruffle it as I turn. So the first part I'm just going to turn in, and this will create what is the bud of the rose. And then I'm just going to ruffle the sides as I work my way around. And when it's the desired shape, I'm just going to pull off that excess and tuck that round, and there we have our first rose. Now for the leaves, I'm just going to take some of that sage green and just take a small ball and create just a teardrop, then flatten that down, and just using my Dresden tool, I'm just going to push that down the center and pull those together just to tuck in beside our rose. Okay, so I've now got all my pieces ready to go on top of my cake. So we're going to start by putting it all together. Okay, so I'm going to start by placing my cup and saucer on the top. So I've just got a ball of gum paste, which I'm going to make into a wedge, just so that saucer is going to be leaning forward. I can then place on all my other decorations. So I've got my Bourbon biscuit, which is just going to go in front of my teacup and saucer. I've got my sugar cubes, which are going to go on the side, and my small little teaspoon. I can then add in the fun vintage roses to the side and finish off the cake with those nice biscuits on the cake board. Now you may notice as I'm putting the cake together, I actually added some steam into the top of my teacup, but looking at the cake all put together, I decided to remove this because it looked better without. And once this is all in the right place, I will glue it all down with some edible glue. Here we have the finished vintage teacup cake where I've used the Sweetstamp on the front. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and even if you don't create the exact cake, you might be able to use some of the elements that I created in today's video in your own cake making. But as always, don't forget to give this video a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cake Spaniards YouTube channel. You can also hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time a new video is uploaded. I'll also put a link in the description below to all the sets of Sweetstamp that I used and all the other tools that I've used in today's video. So until next time, bye!